It's Monday, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so on this, the 20th of April. Happy 420 Day. If that's important to you, it's not important to me, but I'm sure for some people out there it is. Enjoy this Monday, folks. And again, I want to thank you all for tuning in once again from wherever and however you may be doing so on all of your social media platforms. And speaking of which, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. And don't forget to subscribe to Jersey First TV on our YouTube page. Of course, brand new episodes and all our content is there. It takes 5 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment, subscribe, and share our episodes. It really helps the show grow. It really helps show your support for fearless, independent media here on the Jersey First Television Network. And of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First, save the channel, of course, and you can check out Jersey First and all our great content, whether you're doing food shopping. I know the weather's a little crazy, but whether you're going for a morning or afternoon run, walking the dog, whatever it is you're doing, folks, you probably have your smartphone or your tablet with you. Take Jersey First with you anywhere, anytime. Trust me, you'll never be disappointed. And speaking of Jersey First, that's right, folks, front and center here, leading the way, educating and advocating for the great residents here in the Garden State. It's always Jersey First TV. And of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk air live every Monday. Of course, check your local listings for start times here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, a jam-packed show today. And trust me when I tell you, I have a lot on my mind. And, I talk about all the time, folks, all the sort of the useless characters in New Jersey, whether it's in higher education, whether it's in media, whether it's in government work, whether it's some elected officials, whether it's activists, folks, you name it, there is no shortage of useless humans here in New Jersey. And I'll talk about two of the more useless humans here in New Jersey. One pretends to be a journalist, but more of an agitator and propagandist. And yes, folks, that's Leonard Filipowski. That's the best picture I could find of Leonard Filipowski in recent months. But we'll talk about more how it's always about him and never about a cause or about an issue. He has to be front and center when it's really the issue should be front and center. We'll talk about this retard a little bit later during Final Thoughts. And speaking about retards, well, folks, again, it never disappoints. David Cruz with his latest attempt to try to grift when it comes to public media and whether it should be funded. I'll tell you why this latest bullshit from Uncle Dave is exactly that, bullshit. Later on during Final Thoughts, you definitely want to stick around for that one. And folks, also during a special comment, I want to thank everybody that came out last Friday night, April the 17th, to the world-famous Son Cubano in West York, New Jersey, along the waterfront, for the 2026 edition of Memories Matter to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. I'm proud to volunteer with Alzheimer's New Jersey, and we'll tell you why this organization is worth supporting each and every day. Check it out later during a special comment for sure. Folks, it is election season, and I talk to everybody across the aisle here in New Jersey because, again, that's what New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist does. He talks to everybody, Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, Libertarians. Folks, I've done it on this show consistently as we approach 6 years on the air this June. I talk to everybody because I like conversations. Sure, we can agree or disagree, but I want to hear from candidates and what they have to say during this election season. Because here in New Jersey, folks, there's always an election. It doesn't matter whether it's running for president, whether it's running for governor, whether it's running for legislative seats, House seats, or Senate seats. Folks, election season never takes a break here in New Jersey. And here in 2026, all 12 congressional districts are up for grabs. Now, I've talked to some candidates running in the 12th congressional district, and why not keep that streak going? Joining me now live, folks, he is the candidate for the Green Party running once again in the 12th congressional district. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show for the very first time, Andres Jinete, here to Real Talk. Andres, how are you, sir?
Hey, Fernando. How's it going? Thank you so much for having me on.
Good to see you on here, Andres. And, certainly, as I talked about during my intro, I take a lot of pride in talking to candidates from all sides of the political aisle because I think it's important, especially in an election season where there's no county line anymore. Yes, fundraising is always a challenge. But, candidates have the ability to use social media to their advantage, use it to cut promos and videos and mobilize. And I think that certainly has helped candidates especially from lesser known parties. Now, again, the Green Party is not a lesser known party, but for the most part, we know that Republicans and Democrats have been battling it out for Senate seats and House seats for decades, not centuries, basically. But obviously, we've seen the Green Party grow in popularity, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the country. And let's get into what your platform consists of. But first and foremost, what prompted you to want to run in the 12th congressional district for a seat in the House of Representatives?
Yes, Fernando. So I wasn't planning to run at all. I was busy organizing in my community. I'm someone who has been basically advocating for tenant rights. I'm part of Central Jersey Tenant Union. I've been walking the streets, knocking on doors, bringing people to council, talking to the small businesses that have experienced low sales because of ICE and many other issues. So I've been basically just running around in the district and trying to solve problems, honestly. And when I heard that Ms. Coleman was retiring, Representative Coleman, I was like, well, here it is. Here's an opportunity, and I want to bring some of the organizing experience that I've gathered here advocating for issues and fighting for working families. I want to bring it to Washington, and I want to make a change that's going to benefit the district and it's going to benefit everyday Americans.
So let's get into that. I heard a few key words that got my attention right now. And obviously, it seems to always center around affordability here in New Jersey. But before that, let's get into talking about your activism and what you've been doing to, raise awareness for working families. And listen, I grew up in a working class family. We're both Hispanic. My dad's Colombian. You have Colombian roots as well. So, I
Yeah,
think
from the Caribbean. Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. And I think we're gonna probably agree on some things here. But what concerns me, and especially here in New Jersey, right now, obviously, what we saw last November here in New Jersey was an overwhelming mandate with the election of then U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill. Going into Labor Day last year, as a Republican and as a conservative, I felt kind of good. I said, well, I think this could be a close race. And after 8 years of what we saw were failed policies by Phil Murphy, we said, oh, maybe New Jersey's looking to change and maybe get away from these sort of far left, radical, progressive policies from Phil Murphy and maybe get back to the center a little bit. And one of the things that came up a lot during the campaign season last year between Cheryl and her Republican opponent was the presence of ICE. As we knew at the start of last year, um, President Trump was inaugurated for a second term back in 2024. I mean, Donald Trump came within 5 points of winning New Jersey. I mean, that was, pretty historic considering that the last time a Republican won New Jersey during a presidential election cycle was 1988 during George H.W. Bush's win. I mean, that's the last time 14 electoral votes went red. It's been a long time. But Donald Trump ran on a mandate, not just about the economy, but we saw what happened under this during the 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We saw a wide open border. We saw, an outright flood of more than 11 million illegals. And maybe I'm being conservative with that number. It was probably more. But the bottom line is, I think that there was an optic out there for every different demographic, white, black, Hispanic, you name it, that saw a very lax immigration policy with the former administration. And Donald Trump ran on closing the border and having ICE as an agency, which, by the way, has been used by multiple presidents from both parties to deport a record amount of people. Like, people forget that Barack Obama was the deporter in chief. Bill Clinton deported just as many illegals as George W. Bush did in the first Trump term. And we saw last year that Donald Trump wasn't messing around. He sent ICE to problematic areas in the country, predominantly blue states because they're sanctuary states, like New Jersey. There was a lot of uproar about it under this. And we saw, a lot of dangerous illegals get apprehended and removed. And I think that's the mandate that he won on. Now, having said that, I'm intellectually honest under this. I can say that do ICE officers need more training? Absolutely. They need more than 47 days. There's no question about that. Should they have body cams? Absolutely. You won't hear a complaint out of me. But the idea of enforcing immigration law, that's the job of the federal government. That's the job of the executive branch. Now, Congress, which you're running for a seat in the House, can overhaul what the Department of Homeland Security does with agencies like ICE, but it's the job of it's the job of the executive branch to enforce immigration law. In a state like New Jersey, though, Andres, where it's a sanctuary state, and we're seeing what Mikey Sherrill did after 8 years of Murphy, choosing not to cooperate with federal law enforcement. I mean, that's a bad optic. So when you're saying that ICE has damaged certain, sectors in New Jersey, I don't disagree with you. But if abolish ICE is all that one sector of the political aisle wants to do, what you can't do that. I mean, that's not feasible because you have to do that legislatively, and I don't think there's enough votes in Washington to do that. So, what's your argument about ICE and federal immigration law?
Sure. Basically, ICE has become a rogue agency over the years. It was already like that. We had children dying in these facilities. There has been now more concentrations of people that result in human rights violations, in cramming. There has been, as testimonies in Trent have highlighted, there's people from a range of legal statuses being shoved into ICE facilities. There was, I think it was Jersey Kebab, who the owners, two middle-aged, I think, or it was elderly owners were taken to a nice facility. The son didn't know where they were. Small business owners. So we've had an outrageous number of interactions where U.S. citizens have been killed, and it's something that you can't put the genie back in the bottle. The agency has become a political weapon to sensationalize, a kind of to distract from the failures to address economic issues in the United States. And when you have people that are suffering, that don't have proper housing, that don't have health care, that are overburdened by debt, you can sell them a boogeyman in the face. So you can say, well, it's the immigrants over here, or well, don't worry about that. Let's go to war with Iran. So you can sell a solution uh, if you're trying to distract from the failures to address people's needs. And that's my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. And the reason I'm asking is because there are other House candidates in other districts throughout New Jersey, predominantly either Democrats or, in your case, in this case, people that are left of center, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say that Green Party candidates tend to be left of center, maybe a little more progressive, right? Is that fair to say? I mean, if I'm guesstimating correctly?
Well, I reject that framework a little bit. I
Okay.
see it, I think it's more about top versus bottom. You have an overwhelmingly economic agreement, I guess you could call it that, between maybe the more conservative populist elements and maybe the more socialist elements in the political spectrum. So when I look at it that way, I think we have, even if we may disagree about this or that issue, I think we can come together for a ambitious economic agenda that's targeted to working families. I think that's possible.
Okay, that's fair, and we'll get into the economics in a minute. But again, when we talk about how, and listen, I don't disagree that ICE as an agency has been polarizing. Certainly, since it got reorganized into ICE, going back to 2003 with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. Again, immigrant ICE before was just INS, Immigration Naturalization Service. Obviously, after the terrorist attacks in 2001 by Muslim extremists, obviously here on our soil, I mean, we saw a concerted effort to create DHS. Now, again, is it an agency that's flawed? Absolutely. Again, I'm intellectually honest that I can say that it is a flawed agency. I think there needs to be some overhaul or oversight. I don't disagree about the oversight over ICE, but I've asked other candidates on the show, Andres, about, and especially those that look at it as an agency. Again, when I hear these little hashtags, abolish this, abolish that, I mean, okay, that's cute, but what do we replace it with? Again, it's still
Yes.
an agency that has to enforce federal immigration law. So when I hear, well, abolish ICE, so I'm not saying, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just saying out loud, I'm thinking out loud, then who are we going to bestow the responsibility to? Not the FBI, not ATF. I mean, it's an agency that's its sole purpose, to enforce federal immigration. Now, again, Can it be better? Absolutely. And we've seen abuses, we've seen tragic circumstances during this Trump term, the first Trump term, during the days of Barack Obama, when we saw kids in cages, and even going back to George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. They've existed, and it's tragic. I'm not saying it's correct, but that's been happening for some time now. So I'm always asking, so what's the solution? If we abolish ICE, how do we replace it?
No, 100%. As far as, well, at least at the border, I would like to replace CBP with TSA. Just you could have a special division that's dedicated to points of entry.
Okay.
But I want to demilitarize our immigration system at the border. Enforcement doesn't need to be in such a violent manner. I think what I've seen in our communities is a masked men coming in, having no respect for due process, for probable cause, coming in, profiling folks.
Okay.
And I've experienced not a side of this issue that is has nothing to do with public safety nor with with appropriate enforcement. It doesn't mean that we don't have regulations or that we don't have an orderly immigration system, but it's an agency that is it needs to go away. There's no reforming what this agency has become. We are creating concentration camps in this country. We are in the most gross human rights violations
Mhm.
that I've seen in years, and it's very alarming. And I think what we allow to happen to others, when you allow these violent systems, this punishment bureaucracy, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
to emerge and these rogue agencies to take place, it's to the detriment of our democracy, and it's to the detriment of everything that we hold dear in this country, and that's what I believe.
Okay, fair enough. And we'll get back to immigration in a minute. I mean, obviously, it's a big talking point during this election cycle. Obviously, all 12 congressional seats are up for grabs, and we have congressional candidates that have taken positions. Obviously, we just saw last week a special election won in Mikey Sherrill's old district in CD 11, where, for all intents and purposes, I mean, we had a socialist get elected in that district. And we'll talk about whether or not that type of progressive platform can resonate throughout New Jersey, especially in CD 12. Obviously, we're seeing a almost, to sort of reference a WWE, uh, you know, analogy here. I mean, it almost seems like a battle royal in CD 12 in the Democrat Party. That many people running, and we'll see who the candidate is. Um, Coming up in obviously right before the June primary, but we'll see what happens in CD 12. You're running as the Green Party candidate, obviously. Maybe some similar platforms and policy prescriptions exist between you and ultimately whoever's going to be the Democrat nominee, but we'll get to that in a minute. But let's get into economics here and more an issue. I mean, obviously, I know you've been advocating for working families. And here's a topic I think that you and I are going to agree on. And you'll be shocked. I mean, as a conservative, you'll be like, oh my God, you might, thankfully, you're sitting down. You might be floored when I say this. There's no question, I think, that during this cycle, healthcare has become a serious issue for New Jersey residents and for Americans overall. And I'm someone that is of the belief that being able to have healthcare in a country as large as ours is possible. I think it takes a lot of work, but I'm a firm believer that a healthier population is a more productive population, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in the home. Obviously, we have seen the evils of big pharma for decades now. We have seen what corporations have done to healthcare in our country. And listen, now, when we hear comparisons to countries across the Atlantic in Europe that only have, let's say, 10 million people, sure, maybe managing healthcare is a lot more feasible. In a country like ours, where, let's be honest, we're approaching probably 500 million people, it's hard to perhaps administer healthcare. I know that whether it's the Green Party or far left Democrats that campaign on, let's say, Medicare for all and those type of platforms, I'm not as resistant to it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be costly. I always like to see the devil in the details of how we're going to pay for this, because whenever you hear universal this, universal that, again, bro, I'm an academic. It's paid through taxes. It's not, money doesn't grow on trees, you know. But when I hear about issues about healthcare, I don't disagree with progressive colleagues of mine, even my classmates from grad school that are far left, that say, well, Fernando, healthcare is a right. Healthcare, I don't disagree with that. Again, a healthy population is better for everybody. We can work more, we can make more money, we can be more productive in the home, we can spend more time with our kids, our families. I don't disagree with any of that. But how do we get into a country where healthcare can be available for everybody? Now, before we get into for citizens, I'm always concerned about healthcare and my tax dollars going to people that are not here legally. That's a separate conversation. We'll get to that natural part in the convo in a moment. But I don't disagree about someone like you that wants healthcare for everybody. I want it for citizens. I think we've earned it.
Yes. So, well, as far as the how we pay for it, that's not a hard question. I mean, we subsidize a lot of healthcare already, Medicaid, many different aspects of our healthcare system. We are already subsidizing a chunk of it. Another part of it is that if you operate it, if you're trying to expand maybe the Medicare infrastructure that we have to cover it, to cover everyone, to universalize it, you can operate it at cost, which is a huge difference than trying to make a profit of healthcare. It's going to bring the cost down. When you pay for it, when you socialize the cost across the board, right, and you're operating it at cost, it's something that is much more feasible. You're cutting the middleman, that is the insurance industry, and you can deal directly with the providers. That doesn't mean that maybe they don't have a role still managing the networks. Maybe they charge a flat fee or something, but they wouldn't be in charge of denying your claim or approving it, right? We would take that worry off of people's heads. And the way, I mean, I advocate for cutting the military. We have one of the most inflated military budgets in the world, and I also believe in taxing billionaires and corporations that engage that are in business sectors that earn a lot of economic rent, like royalties from natural resources, different maybe like tech monopolies. So you can target the tax structure so that you pursue economic rent rather than goods and services, and you can go after the big fortunes, that is billionaires and millionaires. I can negotiate with the millionaires, but I do want a very high tax rate, maybe 90%, going back to the 1940s when we had that tax rate. So we need to ambitiously spend this money into our families. We are completely defunding, and people are not paying their fair share, as far as the high income
All right, let
folks.
me ask you this, because now you're getting into policy. So the policy nerd in me now is like, oh, now I'm getting the juices flowing up here in my brain. So based on that narrative I just heard, then what's a good tax rate then? Then what taxing what over how much yearly? Are we talk about if you earn more than $1 million? What should,
Mhm.
if I'm earning $1 million? What do you think is a fair tax rate for me?
Right. So right now, okay, so I want to work from the ceiling downwards.
Okay,
So the ceiling for me would be 90%. So we used to have this. I like to say, well, I'm a conservative in this point. I want to go back 100 years to the 1940s.
okay,
So because we had a very high tax rate, and that ceiling at the every dollar after the billion would go far. Depending on that, we can negotiate the
okay,
steepness of the curve of how
okay.
the progressive taxation structure we want to build. But I can negotiate that. But what I'm not negotiating is the 90% tax rate for every dollar after the billion. And if people pay their fair share at the higher end of the spectrum, we could even eliminate or reduce substantially the income taxes that everyday people are paying,
Well,
that are in middle and lower income end of the bracket.
Well, listen, let me ask you this. As a diehard WWE fan, as you can see here, folks, I am representing Roman Reigns, the new world heavyweight champion here after WrestleMania weekend. More on that later. But, listen, I'm no fan of corporations. I've seen firsthand what corporate greed is. Obviously, making fun events like WrestleMania unaffordable for their normal working class fan base. Same thing with sport. I'm a big sports fan. Listen, 2 months from now, the World Cup is coming to New Jersey and across the country. Regular working class people can't afford tickets. And that's crazy. I mean, that's, FIFA's perhaps the most glorified cartel in the world. I mean, that's a topic for another day. So when we talk about, billion, okay, fine. Billionaires aren't being taxed enough from what you're saying. But on this too, and again, I'm not an economist, but again, I've done enough papers in grad school and I've read enough literature, as have you, of course. You're really educated on this, so I can see that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're looking at, you know, I'll give you an example. If you look at this cup right here, about maybe 80% of this cup, if we talk about the federal tax rate and tax revenues coming in, I mean, we're talking about like the top, maybe let's say 10% pays about 85% of this bowl here. I mean, where the bottom 5% of the country maybe pay no federal income tax. I mean, that's true. I mean, like that. This is not me trying to apologize for billionaires. You're not going to hear that from me. I mean, believe me, I'm not liking what they're doing. I think we also have to sort of look at it through the lens of, as you mentioned about, working from the top down. But again, I'll sort of go by someone like myself. I mean, I'm not a millionaire per se, but if I was earning $1 million, here in New Jersey, what do you think would be a fair tax rate for someone like me if I'm making $1 million? It can't be 90%. I mean, that would just be, that's crazy. I mean, we're talking about, I'm left to live on $100,000 here in New Jersey, where, let's be honest, living on $100,000 in New Jersey, it's possible, but it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not feasible. So what's a fair, tax rate then for people making $1 million in New Jersey, or 2 million or 3? Like, what's your cap in your mind about what's fair taxation?
Right. If I'm correct, I believe right now the maximum tax rate. So you go as you're taxing every dollar. At some point, you hit 40%, right? So there's a range. I mean, I don't have an exact number in my mind,
Sure.
but the way I want to finance my programs, the where the big money, the biggest chunk of the funding would come from would be cutting the military 2/3. I would, well, as I said before, 90% of every dollar after the billion. And I would also go after rent seeking behavior in the economy. So
Okay.
I'm not as interested as in taxing goods and services, because it ends up the consumer ends up paying for it. But I'm more interested in going after what's called economic rent. So if you have, like I said before, you own, you are paid royalties to resources, minerals, etc. If you are in a tech monopoly, if you're an online retailer that has, like Amazon, you have an essentially quasi monopoly. We need to, that part of that premium on the price that consumers pay there can be taxed, and it wouldn't be passed on to the consumer because you're taxing economic rent. You're taxing something very specific. And another thing that we can do, is, as far as the real estate is concerned, you can tax well, very specifically, you can tax the value that has a specific name, a, a non-earned value. Like, for example, if you spend money on capital improvements for your property, that is going to up your value, right? That is going to appreciate your property.
Yes.
But if you are part of a community that it has a nice culture, artsy, very vibrant, that also appreciates your value, right? And there's an speculation in that market going on. But if you tax the appreciation that comes from not from capital improvements, but that comes from being in that environment that you don't generate, that you don't work for, right? That's something that can get some money from the speculation that's going
Okay.
on in the real estate, and that's something that you can do as well.
Folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it's 5:30 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is Green Party candidate running in the 12th Congressional District, Andres Jinete, here on the show. Folks, again, like, comment, and share. It just takes a few seconds to show your support for fearless independent journalism, which you can rely on always here with Real Talk on Jersey First TV. Folks, drop a question or comment there in the comment section. Again, our guest tonight. We'll be taking questions if you want for our guest tonight. Now, on this, let me ask you this, because you mentioned that with the now again, I'll be very honest when I say this. When you mentioned the retirement of Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, I'm like, thank God. I mean, good riddance to this woman. I mean, I could not believe me. She could not leave soon enough for me. I mean, I think she has not been a great representative at all in New Jersey. But having said that, with her retiring, obviously it opens up that seat in a primary. Certainly, a lot of what your policy prescriptions are would pretty much fall under the umbrella of the Democrat Party. You've chosen to run as a Green Party candidate. Why not run as a Democrat? I know it's a crowded field. I get it. But why not run as a Democrat, since it seems like more than likely a lot of your policy prescriptions seem to identify with the Democrat Party?
So the issue is, and this happens with every progressive that tries to make a change from inside the party,
Sure.
is that they get stifled by the corporate interest that pours in billions of dollars to make sure that any effort to meaningfully change the party or advance policies is stopped. So I don't think there's any viable path through the Democratic Party. I think both parties, the duopoly in general, Democrats and Republicans, are funded by billionaires and corporations and have no almost no connection whatsoever with the basic needs of everyday people here in the district. I'm very disappointed at people's policies on housing, on a myriad of different issues. I can tell when you see the gross amount of money that's pouring into people's campaigns. I see that people haven't walked the district. People haven't really talked to and gone to the needs of working people, of seniors, of veterans, and I'm very disappointed. So I don't see myself even close to some of the policies that they're advocating. I think it's a lot of posturing, and it's very insubstantial when you see what the real needs are in the district.
Well, let me ask you this, because it would seem, at least here in New Jersey, that the Democrat Party is moving more and more to the left. Obviously, we've seen just up the road, right up in right near me in northern New Jersey. We saw in the 11th congressional district last week's special election result. We saw, like, this isn't a centrist Democrat. This isn't like some corporate moderate Democrat. I mean, we're talking about far left socialist, won decisively in the 11th congressional district over a guy who is a mayor in a small town in Morris County, who's not like some radical, far right Republican. That's just not true. I mean, if we look at, if we're calling balls and strikes fairly, that's just not what happened. But we saw the election of a far left progressive in CD11. We've also seen other elements of the Democrat Party moving more and more to the left. I mean, we saw after 8 years of Phil Murphy, Mikey Sherrill saying she's not going to, govern like Phil Murphy, maybe be more towards the middle. But as we approach 100 days, I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth about Mikey Sherrill. I mean, she signed the Immigrant Trust Directive. She's also introducing, a higher budget now in Trenton, but she still wants to cut. And then to compound that onto this, and I'll sort of, since you mentioned about, dollars and how they're spent here, I mean, here in New Jersey, and again, you can educate me and tell me if I'm wrong, but I know I've done my homework on this. But here in New Jersey, when I hear people, again, not because I want to be combative, but if I hear people saying incorrect things, I feel it's incumbent upon me as a journalist and as an academic to correct people respectfully. But here in New Jersey, what happens is, yes, illegals don't receive Medicaid. That's correct. Some people just say that, they just throw that out there. That's not true. What New Jersey does, like a lot of blue states do, like Illinois and New York and California specifically, is the Medicaid dollars coming from Washington gets allocated into a fund. Now, here in New Jersey, it's called NJ Family Care, which allows New Jersey residents, whether it be citizens or people who are non-citizens, illegals in some cases, to have access to health care. So, yes, Medicaid isn't going directly to people that are here illegally, but it's going into a fund. And this is how Democrats in Trenton work around it, and have allowed this to manifest to the point now on this, where here in New Jersey, we're spending $7 billion to in every sense of the word, coddle. And again, I'll use it. Again, I know the slur bothers you. I'll use a term that more equate with you, to coddle undocumented people with healthcare, with access to education, where I can tell you, and I'm not Stephen A. Smith, where I can tell you that I know thousands of teachers. Our schools are overcrowded. We are seeing anchor babies flooding into New Jersey. I work in education. I see it firsthand. Okay, to provide education to an enormous amount of anchor babies based on parents here illegally. For healthcare, there are people here illegally. We're talking about billions of dollars on this. So when we hear about tax dollars coming back to New Jersey from Washington, this is what one party has been doing in New Jersey for a quarter century. Now you're telling me that you're disappointed with the Democrat Party. Trust me, I am too. But if you're running as a Green Party candidate, then what do you want to tell those in CD12 that you want to do differently from the establishment? And let's be honest, corporate Democrats that are already in New Jersey. We got Frank Pallone south of you. We got some other corporate Democrats in New Jersey that are more than happy to be in bed with billionaires. But as a Green Party candidate, what do you want to tell my viewers tonight that say, you know what? The Democrat Party is running the state into the ground, which is true. That's not bullshit. That's fact. But what do you want to offer as a Green Party candidate when it comes to the finances in the 12th congressional district?
Sure. Let me tackle the first part of the question first. I believe that from my economic assessment, they people put more value into the system and the economy that they take out,
Uh-huh.
because they end up. Um, I mean, they might seek and get some emergency relief or charity care or this and that, but people as well start businesses. They get an IT number and pay taxes. So people are putting economic value, and I'd argue even more that than they're taking out, because they're cut off from a lot of a social services. I mean, the spirit of this country from its inception, we have had, this country was built by low wage agricultural laborers, indentured servants, enslaved people, people that fled violence, that fled prosecution, genocide. So the this is the spirit of our nation. This is the spirit of the country. And I believe so. A lot of the illegal rhetoric, at least in my opinion, is sometimes is used to sensationalize and to distract from. It's a way to do politics in the same way that you can be uh, tough on crime as an image without addressing root causes, and it wins you votes, right? It's a business. I mean, the detention centers are getting government contracts. They donate to politicians. It's not different from the military industrial complex. You just got to follow the money. But as far as what do we do with our finances here in the state, what can we do differently than Democrats? So we are severely defunded by the in our government, because the donors of the Democrats are not allowing them to tax them, are not allowing them to get a piece of that pie that could be used and spent to improve the lives of New Jersey residents and every person across the United States, every person that has to go get up early in the morning and work from sunrise to sunset. People are working weekends. I know a single mother that has to work 70 hours per week to be able to sustain her family with her children. So I think it's ridiculous that we have to live this way, because these Democrats are afraid to challenge and to move things in Washington, because their donors have them by their neck. So what I can do and what I've done here locally is that if you talk directly to people, if you organize, if you message and you communicate and you hold the working class base of this country, and you speak directly to them, and you confront that establishment that is holding back healthcare, housing, and many other things, free education, higher wages, you can make change and put the leadership of the Democrats and the Republicans on the defensive, and they'll have to defend themselves why they're not standing up for majoritarian issues and kitchen table issues that matter to their constituents. They're gonna be the ones justifying themselves.
And you mentioned kitchen table issues. Let's move into that for a moment. And folks, again, if you're interested in donating any disposable income or donating your time or learning more about tonight's guest, folks, he is a Green Party candidate running in the 12th congressional district. He's Andres Jinete. Join us live here. Go to andresjinete.org. That's ANDRESJINETE.org. If you're looking to donate your time or money to his campaign, you can do that again. And of course, when you look at the website, obviously you can make sure you follow him on Instagram, check out his TikTok, check him out on Facebook and X, and also on YouTube. If you're interested in contacting him, it's via PO Box 183 in Bound Brook, New Jersey 08805. I actually know Bound Brook. I used to live in New Brunswick back in my Rutgers days. I know that area pretty well, Bound Brook. There's some good times there for sure. And again, if you're looking to volunteer for his campaign, folks, you can write to the email campaign@andresjinete.org. So again, want to make sure I plug always for my guests during every episode. So let's get into that. You talk about rent control on the site here. So what are some fact and fiction about rent control? Again, here in New Jersey, on this, we have the highest property taxes in the country. NJ.com just produced a report that right now, I think it's at the average here in New Jersey, it's $9,300. Now, again, it can fluctuate. Where I live here, up here in Hudson County, my mayor is also my state senator. He does a phenomenal job in keeping property taxes at a reasonable rate. But if I just drive a little bit north on what's called River Road, as I look in Manhattan, I go into Southern Bergen County, we're talking about municipalities, 12, 13, even as high as $15,000. Go a little bit further into Western Bergen, same thing, a little bit higher. I go a little bit south, maybe jump up the turnpike, go on Route 22, hit spots like Springfield, Summit, you name it. We're talking about 21, 22, even as high as $24,000. So property taxes are the highest in the nation. We're seeing development at an all-time high. Yes, I don't disagree about having some affordable housing, but the problem is that with the Mount Laurel decision here in New Jersey, and again, for everyone that's not familiar with it, what it's doing though, Andres, tell me, correct me if I'm wrong here, it just seems like this fixation on affordable housing is good, but at the same time, we're trying to sort of shove it down the throats of municipalities that just don't have the infrastructure to sustain this. And sooner or later, man, the back breaks on this.
Yes. And we keep coming back to the point that we are so severely defunded, our government is, so that municipalities and the states end up having to take up a lot of the burden that really should be financed by the federal government. I don't think eh, property taxes should be used to finance school districts. I think that's something, again, if billionaires and corporations pay their fair share, we don't need to put that on the back of property owners. That's something that if we can finance that federally, we can lower your property tax that you're paying. Um, so in addition, so that's part of the problem. You can, I mean, infrastructure. We need to have programs that really target and
Well,
find. We are in
and
dire need.
this real quick. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish real quick. But again, about property taxes, the reality is
Hmm.
you're right about school districts, and it's funded partially through property tax. Obviously, some school funding comes from Trenton and the state legislature, but we're also talking about municipal services, police departments, fire departments. Sometimes they're consolidated, EMT. I mean, there are other dynamics where property taxes are extremely relevant for municipalities. I mean, those are more local issues. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me that just simply taxing billionaires is going to create enough revenue to compensate for the fact that we don't have to pay property taxes, is that really feasible? I'll let you finish. But I just want to get that in there because I heard that and I was like, wait a second.
No, I think it's absolutely feasible. It's maybe, I don't know. It's daring to ask, hey, excuse me, I need you to pay your fair share. I think all that it takes is courage to take the step, but it's absolutely feasible. What's unfeasible is doing what we're doing right now, which is putting this burden on the backs of middle and lower income Americans. I think that is absolutely unfeasible. But that is the big part of the issue that we're facing, as far as having a, a government that is not funded properly. Now, the other part of the question, as far as the affordability is concerned, I mean, what I advocate, I don't think of affordable housing is gonna save us. Like, if you mean by affordable housing, just having, well, let's just give this handout to the developer to see if they give us, some 20% of units, 30% of units that are affordable. That is not even close to the need that we have here in New Jersey. What I'm advocating for is social housing, is the Vienna model, which is that at least the majority of the market is either own and managed either directly by the government, or you have a nonprofits like community, what is it community land trust, that do manage these things at cost. So what happens there is you create kind of like a downward pressure, and you create a standard that you have these nice dignified dwellings. It's not the cages that were the high risers of decades ago, but you have these very nice dignified dwellings that are renting at 30% of your wages. And if you are someone that is unemployed, that is homeless or facing difficulties, we're going to house you first. We're going to make sure that we get into that need of New Jerseyans that are experiencing homelessness, that are unemployed, and we're going to tailor to them, and also offer to New Jerseyans that are that are paying 50 2/3 of their wages in rent. That is absolute insanity.
Okay. Speaking of wages, obviously another component of your platform is the fight for $25. Obviously, raising what you're advocating for, again, via your website, is raising the federal minimum wage from 7.25 to $25 an hour and index future increases in inflation. So, for example, here in New Jersey, obviously we saw during the previous 8 years of Governor Phil Murphy, we saw a systematic increase of the state, the minimum wage here in New Jersey to $15 an hour. Now, we saw that in small increments. Obviously, there's still the concern that when you're paying higher wages, now again, it depends because, you know, the corporations in New Jersey that call New Jersey home, let's say, a Starbucks or a Walmart or a Target or you name it, sort of big retail type corporations don't really feel that pinch. But again, the problem, Andres, is when we're talking about small businesses. Now, again, as a small business owner myself, again, it's only a one man operation. But as a member of the statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, again, as a small business owner being Hispanic, I talk to Hispanic, small business owners all the time at mixers, at events, at workshops, and I hear it all the time. Where, listen, I understand about fair wages, and we always hear this narrative about a living wage, but here in New Jersey, where the cost of living continues, and again, I keep saying it, like it's not people like Fernando Uribe you can blame for why New Jersey's more expensive. It's just not people like me ideologically. It just isn't. But when you start raising the minimum wage that much, it really starts hurting small businesses. And at the end of the day, if you're advocating for something as high as 25 at the federal level, then again, do you feel confident you'd be able? Now, again, should you win? Again, there's no primary for you, but if you were able to win in November in the 12th congressional district, and you take office in January in Washington, I mean, realistically, how confident do you feel if you're sitting there with other members of the House of Representatives and trying to advocate for a $25 minimum wage where, again, on this, big corporations, it doesn't hit them as hard, but medium size, smaller size small businesses are really going to feel the pinch. So if we're talking about helping businesses, that's one thing. I got to tell you, man, that might hurt small businesses in the long run.
Mm. So 20 any wage. So we're owed at this point. The wage has been sunk for decades now. At this point, we are $25 is to begin to address it. It should actually be 30 in some cities that have like bigger economies. But I mean, as far as small business owners, so it's not just it's the whole program. It's not just raising $25 an hour. It's also that if you have to pay your employees, maybe this would be more for small medium. But if you're paying for healthcare for your employees, and we socialize the cost of healthcare, we're providing universal healthcare, then that's a cost that we're taking off your back, right? So some of these social programs are going to have a benefit even for small businesses. If you tackle through as a taxation system speculation, that's and you what do you call it? You avoid some of the tactics that are happening right now in the appreciation of property values and the way this is reflected in rents for businesses. Like there are many ways to help small businesses that even if we raise that $25 an hour, um, at the end of the day, if it costs, we have an example already in Seattle where it didn't hit the job market. They've had like $20 an hour for like over 10 years. No, sorry, they instituted $15 an hour 10 years ago. They indexed it to inflation and it's now 20. And they haven't experienced those effects that people always kind of like talk about. Well, we're going to have a lot of unemployment. They haven't experienced that. So, and if we do, what we have learned economically is that when you can always complement demand by spending on the government side. So if you need jobs in an economy, if the economy is not going fast enough, the engine of the economy is not moving enough, you can always do that via spending to increase aggregate demand. So that is many of the tools that we have policy wise to deal with that.
Listen, those are all fair arguments. And again, if you're going to reference a state like Washington, where they're going to implement a millionaire's tax, just like California. I mean, what are we seeing, man? We're seeing. I mean, listen, and I would never defend this guy. I think I hate this guy as much as I hate, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm a Cowboy fan. But Mark Zuckerberg realized leaving California was the best thing, and where'd he go? He went to Florida, and to no one's surprise. Different tax rate. Certainly, he's very wealthy, and we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of businesses leaving these high tax states. I mean, again, case in point, irrespective of what you think about them ideologically or personally, whether it's Joe Rogan or Ben Shapiro or others, they've taken their companies and moving them into states that have been more business friendly, whether it's Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, you name it. And we're seeing that exodus here in New Jersey, where, listen, again, New Jersey is still the most densely populated state in the country. But make no mistake about it, man. People are leaving in New Jersey. People are leaving, businesses are leaving here because of the high taxation. Now, in your position, again, as someone looking to run for a seat in the House of Representatives, I mean, you want to be in Washington with your fellow legislators. When you talk about a higher federal minimum wage, yes, when it comes to bigger corporations in terms of roster, that might seem more feasible. But we're talking about, again, these sort of intermediary to much smaller scale. Isn't there a concern that you're harming them as well because they won't be able to keep up with the necessary manpower that they're going to have for that small business to succeed, especially when you're raising the wage as high as the number as you're suggesting?
Right. So it's going to obviously you might have to do with less workers, but if you're investing in as a government, if you're putting in money and growing other industries, you can absorb some of that workforce. So yeah, it has to be. So my point is that it has to be like a comprehensive program. It can't just be okay. Let's raise 25 and we don't do anything else. No, it's just raise 25, take off the cost of paying for healthcare. It's also it's many different things. Is rent control fine tuning rent control so that it affects your cost as a business that maybe helps you, it gives you a buffer to absorb that $25 minimum wage. So it's tailoring it in with the other policies so that you can absorb it, because we want to work with you as a small business. You're talking to someone that I frequent my mom and pop shops. I help them organize. They were big supporters of the ITA resolution here last year, and they led that, and I helped them organize because I had some rapport with them, and I helped them bring that to council and talk to council about how they were being affected by ICE and stuff like that. So you're talking to someone that has a relationship with my local small businesses and have tried to like to accommodate to their needs. So I'm open to listen and to adjust it, but obviously it would be a comprehensive policy. It's not just let's raise it and screw you. No, not at all.
All right, fair enough. Again, folks, if you just joined us live right now, it's 6 o'clock exactly here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is Green Party candidate running in the 12th Congressional District, Andres Jinete, joining us here live on Real Talk, folks. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It really helps the show grow and helps show your support for fearless independent media, courtesy of Real Talk on Jersey First TV. Andres, obviously, going by the website here, looking at, and we touched on it a little bit earlier about abolishing ICE, and that seems to be a very popular moniker during this election season. But I'll sort of, and we talked about this before we went live on the air. Now we share a commonality. We both have Colombian roots, right? And were you born here or?
I came here when I was 12. So
Okay.
I was born in the Caribbean. I came here,
Okay.
and I was basically raised, I guess, in the
Okay.
Raritan Valley.
That's fine. Okay, no, I mean the reason I'm asking is, I was born here. My dad was born in Colombia, immigrated here back in the late '60s, and my mom came from Cuba. Again, I don't want to sort of pitch the violin, as they say, but they came here the right way and became citizens. They've been productive, and been retired, worked hard, living off really good pensions, and so I'm grateful to that. Having said that, based on the narrative we see with a lot of these nonprofits here in New Jersey, again, you're an organizer, right? You're an activist. So I'm sure along the way you've bumped into people like this, during your travels, whether it's organizations like Make the Road New Jersey or the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice or the New Jersey Working Families Party. I mean, you name it. I mean, again, as an organizer, I'm sure you've interacted with some of these progressive organizations. That's fine, to each his own. But I always like to throw this example out there. Now, again, I am the son of a Colombian father. It doesn't work in Colombia the way it works here. Naturalization doesn't work that way, where just because my dad's Colombian doesn't make me a Colombian citizen. But, I like to travel to Colombia with my family. We'll be traveling to Colombia, as a matter of fact, later this summer. For the sake of argument, if I decide to be like, well, I like it here. The women are hot, which they are. And I want to just, stick around. And I'm a citizen, and I'm like, well, I can do my show from Bucaramanga, or I can do my show from Bogota. All right, whatever. Sure. And I decide to stay there, Andres. I'm not a Colombian citizen. If I decide to stay there and let's say maybe apply for a driver's license or apply for employment, let's go one step at a time. I apply for a job. I get a job. I decide to apply for a driver's license. Well, I'm not a citizen. I don't know how that would work in Colombia. But let's just say I already have multiple graduate degrees. I get a little eager. And I'm like, you know what? Let me go for another graduate degree. I decided to go and enroll at a college in Colombia. I decided to apply for another graduate degree. The premise on this that a lot of these activists here, whether it's in New Jersey or across the country, especially progressives, feel like there's this level of entitlement because you're here. You should have access to A, B, and C. And then if I go to Colombia, I'm not a citizen there. I don't have access to anything there. I can apply for a driver's license because I want to, because I'm there. Can apply to go to college at discount tuition rates just because I'm there. Again, that doesn't make Colombia as a country harsh. A lot of countries in Latin America would adopt the same thing that I'm trying to do in Colombia. I don't think anyone's demonizing Mexico or Costa Rica or Colombia. I mean, that's pretty, scrutinized. I'm sorry, pretty tight immigration policies. So when I hear these organizations in New Jersey, like, Amy Torres and others, Nettie Morsi and others that I can't stand, it aggravates me because especially someone like my parents who came here the right way, who did everything, above water, as they say. And we're seeing people again, undocumented people, we'll use the language here, that are coming here and somehow they're demanding driver's licenses, tuition, discount rate in New Jersey, and other amenities that are made for citizens. And that's kind of a hard argument to sell, isn't it?
So these people are not sitting idle, and at the same time they're not demanding anything. People work, they create value in the economy, they babysit in the neighborhood, they frequent other businesses, they create businesses themselves. um uh, uh, People are, their children are with our children. It's really, we're talking about people that end up being a part of our community. So
Sure.
it's and I would say anything to the contrary is contrary to the American spirit. We have to remember that we came here as indentured servants, as low wage agricultural laborers, people that were fleeing a massacre and persecution. So we're a country that's a reflection of that, and that's something that's very um, close to the American spirit. So I think we're completely grounded in that when we and it's not about, oh, okay, let me give you a handout, and you. No, it's about uh, having having systems that are responsive to the people that are here. People that live here should not have to should be have access and be part of the community and the society that are a that is their home. If you want to talk about, maybe if you have a flow of folks because we put sanctions on countries, because we destabilize other countries' economies,
Hmm.
because of failed war on drug policies,
Hmm.
because we don't have ambitious regional economic plans that create jobs across the region like Europe does.
Hmm.
I mean, that's ourselves to blame, but we can definitely, there's policies that can deal with root causes
Hmm.
of migration. If the thing is we want to have more stable flows, like, I don't disagree with that. We can talk policy and we can target root causes so we have more stable flows.
Hmm.
But I think both things we can do both things. We don't need to be we can be reasonable in our approach.
Okay, listen, all fair points, but again, I'm going to go back to my example of going back to my dad's homeland. I couldn't do anything I just told you in Colombia. I mean, no one's going to turn around and be like, well, Colombia is just, a punitive, tyrannical nation against an immigrant like Fernando Uribe, who's an American, who's not a Colombian citizen, but here he is trying to do A, B, and C in Colombia when he's not a citizen. I don't think anyone's, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anyone's going to turn around and be like, well, Colombia is just tyrannical. Colombia is just
Mm.
punitive against an immigrant. I mean, do you see what I'm saying there?
So Venezuela, what got sanctioned on, so got put sanctions on by the United States that exacerbated. So they financed with oil most of their social programs, and when the oil prices kind of like went down, it affected their economy, and then later on the United States put sanctions on them, and that caused a humanitarian crisis of
Mhm.
people migrating all over the Americas. And when they came into Colombia, there was like a couple million people that went into Colombia. And what happened is something that the government did was that they end up later on they ended up giving them citizenship, actually. And I remember the president of Colombia, when Anthony Blinken, the past Secretary of State, was over there. He said that we should do the same thing in the United States. We should have, in the same way that if you want to put the Colombian example forth, then what Colombia did is that they created a path for Venezuelans, and Venezuelans have integrated and continue to integrate in the society. That's what Colombia did. If you wanna we wanna go the Colombian route.
Now, listen, that's all fair. And again, I mean, obviously, I mean, we're bringing in some geopolitical components here, obviously, about what's going on and, governments like Venezuela and Cuba for decades. And again, I don't want to turn this into like political science course, but certainly yes, when we talk about sanctions and what those governments have been doing for decades. I mean, I listen. I don't want to make this elementary and just be like, I don't want to sound like the typical Cuban, but like again, based on what we've seen in the quality of life, and we've seen socialist presidents and socialist governments for decades, Andres. Again, nobody's risking their lives to go to Cuba or Venezuela, or communist countries. Like they're just not. Like everyone's risking their lives to come here, and I don't disagree for a better life. What I'm concerned about again is I think that when we see these advocacy organizations, I'm not saying you're guilty of this. What I'm saying is here in New Jersey specifically, when I see these advocacy organizations, like here in New Jersey, for example, yes, under Governor Phil Murphy, a lot of these organizations that I just named push very hard for illegals to get driver's licenses. Okay, I mean, that's fine. They're here, they're driving, but this is the problem. And again, I can say this because I've done research on it. I've talked to legislators. I've interviewed legislators on this program that have talked about it a lot. Again, if you're not a citizen, yes, under the law of granting driver's licenses, yes, you have to register your vehicle. You have to get car insurance. Guess what? When you're not a citizen, these car insurance companies aren't going to bestow car insurance at bigger premium, not premiums, but coverage. So when you're here illegally and you have a driver's license, again, you're required to register your vehicle. What's going to happen is you have no choice, but have to basically, and again, I don't want to like just shit on them specifically, but like NJ Cure is pretty much like the bottom of the barrel of car insurance. That's pretty much like if you have a pulse and you're breathing and you're not a citizen, that's pretty much the coverage you can not necessarily afford, but that's what's available to you. Other companies aren't going to give coverage to people that aren't citizens. And what happens is these policies have very bad coverage for deductibles, for body, for auto. And guess what happens? When you're giving driver's licenses to people that are here illegally, they can't afford regular coverage. God forbid, when we're talking about coverage for automobiles and things happen, it's sooner or later the shit hits the fan. And we've seen that. And my concern is when we see these progressive policies, yes, like they sound great and they're nice and it warms the heart of a lot of people. But I think down the road, we're not seeing what we're going to see, or we're already seeing the fiscal and the societal impact that it has here in New Jersey, whether it's something like, to your point about these organizations, what they do for people that are here illegally, right? Undocumented people, et cetera, whatever. The problem is that I think there's an optic, even within our community, we're Hispanic. Even within our community, I think there's an optic that's hard to kind of overlook of like, wait a second, we have people here that have been here for decades, let's say have gone about the right way. They got their citizenship eventually. And what they're seeing is people here illegally getting a lot of, not handouts per se, but getting a lot of amenities that even citizens aren't getting as quickly, or the accessibility of it. And no offense, as being Hispanic, like my parents aren't racist. My parents aren't bigots against immigrants. But when they're seeing illegals coming here, getting amenities that they didn't get, maybe we can come to the middle on this. There has to be an understanding of like, that's why there's friction about this topic.
Mm-hmm. There's like three different angles to this, and I'm
Sure.
gonna try to hold it all in my head
Sure.
as I try to start to answer. So part of what you're describing is states trying to do a patchwork solution to a broken immigration system that should be corrected at the federal level. I mean, this inflation of the ICE budget should really be put into streamlining processes so people don't end up having to because of cost, because of delays, because of just a bad immigration system, fall into illegality. Not everybody is just there's different. Not everybody's the same as far as undocumented. Many are undocumented because of the inefficiencies of the system, and the states try to work around it. So that's part of an answer. Another part of what you mentioned, let's see if I can recall, is that so because people are suffering and are not doing well themselves, they see they don't have health care, they are overburdened by medical and student debt, they can't make it at the end of the month, their rents are exorbitant. So they're trying to, I see, maybe I see someone, the low income, getting accessibility to a social program. The social program is not as universal as it should be, and I'm struggling, and I'm not doing well. Of course I'm gonna be upset. I don't blame people. What I think is that we can have more dignified lives. We don't need to be struggling in this rat race. We don't need to be in this position. We can, if we tax in the right places, and we fund the government substantially, we can do the social programs that are going to give relief to those families, so that they don't have to feel like, well, why do if people are doing better, if people are not struggling themselves, there's a pressure valve that's going to be released. And I feel those sentiments, or those that way of thinking is going to be less so, because I think it's being animated by a lot of the struggle that our families are experiencing. That's my perspective.
Okay, fair enough. Folks, here it's 6:10 on the East Coast. We're about to wrap up shortly here with tonight's guest. He is a Green Party candidate running in the 12th Congressional District down in Central Jersey, Central Southish Jersey, a little bit. I mean, it's south of me, of course, but more centralist. We'll see. He's Andres Jinete, joining us live here on the show. Now, Andres, we've talked to Andres, the candidate, the activist, the organizer, but let's just do a quick, lightning round to get to know Andres, the guy, the regular guy. Now, I know we talked before off
Mm.
the air. Obviously, you're not a big sports guy, so I guess we'll sort of skip the sports questions. If you're not into baseball or football, basketball or hockey or soccer, then we'll skip those questions. Is that fair to say you're not a sports guy?
Yeah, sure. I like books. I like podcasts.
Okay. Okay.
What
All right.
music.
Listen, I can think on the fly here, so let's do a quick lightning round here. Comic book fan, man. You like Marvel movies, DC, any superhero movies you like?
I read, so in when my younger days, I used to read more manga. I like well, I mean, everybody likes Dragon Ball Z, some of the action shows, right? And I like a lot of the Japanese animation, the movies, Studio Ghibli. I think it's very artsy. It's very has many sublime elements. I really like it.
Okay.
I like their entertainment industry as far as animation. Yes.
Okay. After a long day, what do you like at home? You like a glass of scotch, glass of wine, a beer, cocktail? What does Andres like after a long day?
Well, when you organize to the level that I'm organizing, you start to see how, when you drink, it makes you, it takes away some of your energy the next day, and you're not 100% there. So I'm not drinking anymore right now, nor I just don't engage in it. And I think it helps us be more productive human beings. Not that um, it's a prescription that I want to put on everyone, but
Mhm,
I think at some point when you're like performing at a high level, or when there's a lot of demand,
mhm.
it becomes like a hindrance, right? And if you're doing what you love, there's other ways, maybe healthier ways to kind of engage in your downtime. And no, you don't need to be drinking all the time. At least that's my
Okay.
opinion.
Well, it is 420 today, April 20th. So if you don't like liquor, maybe something you want to tell me today on the air?
420. Well, Green Party historically has supported legalization of marijuana. We think that it's really, I don't know why we have this regime of prohibition. I think New Jersey has made a good decision in legalizing and taxing those proceeds from marijuana. I think it was a good decision, and federally, I would support full legalization across the country, and I think it would be a good source of revenue to invest in productive things.
All right, listen, fair enough. Listen, I think we can agree on this in the middle. I mean, going back to my days in grad school, I remember writing papers on like, we're just, again, and I'm someone that worked in our criminal justice system for 10 years before entering academia and then going into journalism. Like, I saw firsthand, like, it was ridiculous to incarcerate people, black, brown, white, whatever, for weed. I mean, you lose the right to vote, you lose access to your
Mhm.
student loans. I mean, it really just messes up your life. So I was like, okay, cool, fine, legalizing it, taxing it. Again, I've never smoked marijuana. I don't care to. Some people think I should smoke marijuana to lighten up maybe a little bit, but that's another conversation. But I understand the argument about that. And even at the federal level, if you're looking to declassify it, right? Obviously, it's still what's the classification? Is it still a? I'm trying to remember what the classification is at the federal level. Marijuana is a. Is it type 1, type 2, or is it class A? I'm trying to remember what the classification is at the federal level. Um, but obviously, you know, presidents, Republicans, and Democrats have come along the way for decades. Never seems to get a lot of traction, right, or momentum at the federal level during election season, right? I think if somebody running for president said, "I'm going to declassify marijuana," or "I'm going to push for it," I think that person would probably win like 400 electoral votes. I'm just convinced. I just think that person would win in a landslide, but who knows? So again, we're both Hispanic. We both like, obviously, we both have our heritage. What's your cuisine of preference?
Mm. So let's see. Yesterday I was doing. So I did some ground chicken. I seasoned it with different, like I think with like tahini and some other stuff,
Mhm.
and whatnot. Obviously, we eat a lot of rice. I mean, that's
Yeah,
part of the Moorish heritage and whatnot. We eat a lot of rice. So obviously, if you're in a Hispanic household, you saute that onion and
yeah,
garlic
yeah,
before
yeah,
you put in the
yeah, yeah.
rice, right? So just get a little more flavor in. So we're big on rice culture. I like, I enjoy cooking. I mean, it's like a craft. Um, I sh- um, I'm trying to get better at it.
Sure.
But it's something that I've taken after a little bit from my mom and stuff like that.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
yeah.
Last one here. Favorite American president and why?
Mm. So it's a good one. Maybe, because I could tell you easily people that I dislike, but someone that I like. So maybe I would say FDR.
Okay.
But it's not really like, I don't give him the credit. I give the organizations and the people that were pushing him the credit, because they made them, they used kind of like the moment and the climate at that time, post depression, to bring forth programs, ambitious social programs that all Americans are still benefiting from today. Hugely popular programs like Social Security, unemployment. So, and it's not really FDR's doing as much as it has been, as it was many organizers that helped push for that.
Hey, least favorite American president and why?
Sorry, what?
Least favorite American president and why?
Least favorite American president. That's a very good question. I tend to dislike, so, mm, maybe Nixon, in the sense because he started the war on drugs. But at the same time he got us out of Vietnam, so it's like a mixed bag. Um, no, maybe it would have to be Reagan, probably, because under him there was a lot of defunding. We had free higher education, like it in California, in CUNY was free. So we lost so much with the cracking down on unions. So that's something. If I had to choose a president, it would probably be him, because of all the things that we lost that now we have to pay for.
Sure. I'll just sort of piggyback on some of the questions here. My favorite American president is Teddy Roosevelt. I felt Teddy Roosevelt. It's sort of a tie. It's like Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. I think great
Mm,
American presidents for different times. Obviously, we all know the strain Abraham Lincoln was under, and also being the father of the Republican Party. I think obviously holds a special place for me. But also everything he went through right after the Civil War, and ultimately being like that figure to rise above it. And Teddy Roosevelt, great American president, I think got us through a very difficult period here in our country for certain. Now, least this might surprise you, my least favorite American president, as we've come to learn, and I've done my reading on this, is probably George W. Bush. 20 years ago, I think we got to learn um, about what happened uh, under his administration, under that and Dick Cheney, and certainly lying us into war, uh, hurting and killing thousands of American servicemen and women, and certainly, lying us into a war that we all know now was bullshit. And it was so infuriating to me during the 2024 election cycle when I saw Kamala Harris out there with Lynn Cheney, and I was like, wait a minute, Liz Cheney, like, wait a second. 20 years ago, Democrats thought that her father and George Bush were war criminals. I mean, if they wanted to try to prosecute him, they would have loved it. And I remember, like, wait a second, like, do people not have? Are people like having short memories here? Are people smoking too much weed?
Mhm.
Like, what's going on here? Like, campaign with someone like Liz Cheney, whose father was arguably instrumental in like lying us into war. Like, I don't understand. I think there's a lot of revision. Now, again, 20 some years later, it's a very different Republican Party than it was under George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Again, different strokes for different folks. But I look back and, I think history is going to look back. Listen, I understand if people are going to say, well, history is going to look back on Donald Trump with very, very negative eyes. Okay, sure, you're entitled to your opinion. But I think history is going to look back really negatively at George Bush and Dick Cheney. I mean, that was a really, really, I mean, very, morally corrupt regime, to say the least. I mean, and I'm a conservative telling you this. So just imagine how I feel about that administration because of what we've come to learn about them 20 something years later. So maybe some food for thought for the audience tonight. But Andres,
Yeah,
I
no,
want to thank you for your time.
so
What's that?
well, thank you. No, I was gonna say I'm agreeing. So look, I dislike and like everyone. I have
Sure,
criticisms and there are things that I'm gonna appreciate from everyone.
sure.
And I think when you look at the donors, there is practically indistinguishable. So
Mhm.
I try to go past the brands and
Sure.
just see how the money flows and make my decisions and my assessments based off of that. But
All right.
yeah, yeah, there's
Um,
good and
so
evil in everyone.
So again, Andres, I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's been a really healthy conversation. Again, listen, you survived. You were able to talk with a conservative, right? And like everything's good with the universe, right? Like you didn't rip your hair out. Your blood pressure didn't go up. I think this was a really
You've been
constructive.
lovely. Thank you.
I think it was a really constructive conversation. I appreciate your time. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
No, Fernando, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It's been a very good conversation. I think many times is good not to shy away, even if from the critical issues, even if we might have different opinions. People are not meant to agree on everything, and agree to disagree is a very healthy practice. I mean, you brought up many of the points that you've brought tonight. I've heard from people that I've talked to across the district, from veterans, from just everyday families, and I think it's important to speak to people's concerns and to address them and not dismiss them, and not think that people are less than, or to really have a deep listening and engage with people seriously, even if we disagree. I think not insulting people's intelligence and having some honesty and some openness will lead to good things, and will help us move past ideologies and left and right, this and that. We talk about people's issues. I think we can come to good solutions.
All
But
right.
thank you so much for having me on, Fernando.
Again, and real quick, you just drop your handles, your website, everything for our audience tonight.
Sure. So if anybody's interested in donating or helping out with the campaign, volunteering, you can go to andresjinete.org. That is Andres, Andres, Jinete, Jinete.org. If you Google me, I mean, my social media will come up. I'm in Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm gonna get out of TikTok, transition to Upscroll, and I'm on YouTube as well, and I forget where else. But yeah, you can find me all in all those places.
All right, folks, coming up this year in the 12th Congressional District, you have some options. And certainly one of them is tonight's guest, Green Party candidate in the 12th Congressional District, Andres Jinete, joins us live here. Best of luck to you in the campaign trail. We'll talk to you again soon here on Real Talk. I appreciate your support of the Medium brand, and We'll talk soon here again on the Jersey First Television Network. Andres, best of luck to you, brother. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Take care. Folks, good stuff there. Obviously, as I talk about it on the show all the time, I like talking to everybody on this program. I think constructive conversations are important. And being the broadcast journalist that I am, I mean, I can have these conversations. Okay? No need to get emotional. No screaming matches. No name calling. Folks, having straight policy discussions. That's what we do here on this show, folks. Okay? No partisanship here. No bias. Just real talk. Talking to candidates about kitchen table issues. Not bullshit identity politics or other stuff. No. Talking about the real issues that affect us. Kitchen table issues. Especially here in New Jersey. Affordability. Public safety. Okay? Not bullshit like pronouns. No. It's not basura. Like real issues. Like property taxes. Public safety. Issues that affect our pockets. That affect our families. That's what we talk about on this program, folks. That's what makes this show the best weekly show anywhere in independent media. Okay? Don't be fooled by Mickey Mouse journalists with the little Mickey Mouse shows and the little Mickey Mouse discussions. No, folks. And more on those later because we'll get to talk about Mickey Mouse journalists in a minute. But here on this, folks, on this program, again, coincidentally, I'm rocking the Roman Reigns shirt today here. Greatness. That's what we bring you on this show, folks. Greatness. Just like Roman Reigns, the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion, brings you greatness. So does Real Talk every week here on the Jersey First Television Network. So once again, thank you to Andres Jinete for an insightful conversation today about his platform and what he's looking to accomplish should he be successful in winning in the 12th Congressional District. So, folks, again, we'll be talking to candidates all throughout this election cycle because that's what we do here on this show and also on Jersey First TV. Folks, you know what time it is. It's time, as always. We appreciate you tuning in here. Again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode, folks. It helps the show grow and show your support for fearless independent media, like real fearless independent media, not bullshit independent media or people out there. No. Real fearless independent media. That's what you rely on here with Real Talk on Jersey First TV. That's right, folks. It's time for final thoughts. And, folks, I talk about it all the time on the show here. We got plenty of bad actors here in New Jersey, whether it's in higher education, right? Whether it's useless government employees, sensationalizing elected officials, useless women in New Jersey that either work in politics or activism, you name it. But today I want to focus on two useless journalists. And I use the term loosely because they're either propagandists or agitators, but they're not journalists. And when I think about useless people, I think about retards. What comes to mind, folks, in New Jersey? Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Yes, folks, we talk about Leonard Filipowski, and that's a great picture of him from his days getting arrested last year when he was an absolute idiot at the Union City Board of Education. But what makes Leonard, and I'm not going to call him by his stupid bullshit gimmick name, folks. This is a grown-ass man. It's a grown-ass man in his 70s parading around with a gimmick name. Come on. Give me a break. Okay? But what makes Leonard insufferable is that when he thinks he's doing a good job or talking about a cause, he really makes it about himself. Whether it's making a scene at commissioner meetings in Hudson County, at council meetings in Union County, okay, at workshops. This is a guy with serious impulse control problems who somehow can't behave like an adult, who somehow can never lower the tone of his voice and seems to think that he's entitled to walk in wherever and whenever he wants without repercussion. No, Leonard, welcome to the real world. You don't just get to walk in somewhere and just be like, well, I have a constitutional right. Again, Leonard, I think you failed U.S. history, or if you ever took a con law class, which I seriously doubt you did. But freedom of speech doesn't make you, again, freedom of speech is to prevent government from being tyrannical or usurpacious. for your speech. Doesn't mean you have freedom of speech to just go around and be an asshole to people and be invasive and be an agitator, along with you and your minions, the other retards that follow you around, that supposedly call themselves journalists, which they're not. Okay. But two examples that come to mind about Leonard, and one that really kind of, you know, hits home for me, is Leonard going after a member of the Pinnacle here in Hudson County. Now, what members of the Board of Education in Union City don't have the luxury of is having a microphone to just say whatever they want. They have to take the high road. On this show, I don't have to take the high road. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Okay? Now, the reality is, Leonard's headed in for people at the Union City Board of Ed. Like really admirable and honorable people. Like Assistant Superintendent John Benetti. And if you remember, some months ago, I made it a point to go defend John Benetti. Not because John Benetti can't defend himself. He's a grown man. He can do that on his own. But he chooses to ignore. And that's a good strategy. I don't doubt it for a second. But I'm happy to stick up for educated men like John Benetti as I have in the past. Okay? And other educated members of the community. Like Assistant Superintendent Jerry Perez. And the District Superintendent Sylvia Bato. And other great staff that occupy the Union City School District. Folks, as a reminder, the Union City School District during COVID was one of the best and most productive school districts, not just in Hudson County, in the state. So while there are counties and hundreds of school districts that are still dealing with learning loss from the pandemic, you know who got out in front of it and did an exceptional job? So much so they were featured by newspapers on a national level. Yes, folks, Union City. And that just isn't only with the management and the leadership at the top, but it's with the staff, supervisors, people that work with young people every single day. And it's a tough job. I don't wish it on anybody. Okay? Working in an urban school district and sometimes working with some rotten kids. I don't wish that on anybody. God bless you if you got to do that. Okay? I got no desire. But that's why I take these personal attacks by Leonard so seriously, because what Leonard's doing is just being blasphemous, an agitator, and just being an asshole. That's what Leonard Filipowski has become since coming to Hudson County in 2023. Now, who's paying him? Who's giving him rent? Who's giving him a free apartment in Union City? Who's paying his phone bill? Who's giving him equipment? Who's filling up his gas tank? Folks, we've heard the rumors and we've heard speculation forever. I think we all know who's been doing it for some years now. Okay? But what bothers me about Leonard is that he thinks he's doing something admirable, and he's not. What he's doing is reprehensible. Going after honorable people like Mr. Astudillo. Now you might say, "Oh, Fernando's getting a little fickle here because, hey, as the captain here of the Pinnacle, I don't like anybody shitting on my team and my teammates." Robert's a really good human, folks. Robert's a really good supervisor. And Robert works with exceptional people at Union City High School in the visual arts and performing arts department. Shout out to Kristen Pinello, who works with Robert there at the high school. She's probably going to kill me for dropping her name on the broadcast, but there's a method to the madness, folks. These are exceptional professionals working with some very challenging populations, and they do it well. So when I hear Leonard going out of his way to attack accomplished, educated professionals in education, Folks, it's a reminder of that Leonard should be ashamed of himself. But then again, it would require Leonard to have shame to begin with. And we all know he doesn't have any, among other things, like the pesky four-syllable word that I talk about all the time, which this show is predicated on, integrity. We all know Leonard doesn't have any. And at a time, for example, when we should be talking about helping residents, no, it's about helping himself. And that's what Leonard does better than anybody. You name the topic, you name the issue, Leonard's all about helping himself. But you know what journalist is going to talk about helping Union City residents? Fernando Uribe. So as you can see there right behind me, folks, you can see the GoFundMe page. Recently over the weekend, we had a tragedy in Union City. Okay, and we're asking you, if you can, any disposable dollars you can do, we're asking you to support Union City families after the fire. So again, if you do a quick Google search on GoFundMe, you'll find this page. Okay, I've not seen the updated total yet, but I can tell you that this is a cause worth staying up for. And instead about making it about the cause, Leonard has to make it about himself. Folks, that's not philanthropic, that's not noble, that's not even decent. But none of those words are ever used to describe Leonard Filipowski. Now, with the retards that support Leonard, I mean, sure, they'll kiss his ass because they're like seals at the circus. They're like, waiting for someone to dangle a fish in front of them because that's how gullible they are. His supporters are gullible, folks. There's no way around it. But at a time when Union City families are being hurt like they are this past weekend, folks, take a moment and help if you can. Help these families. I'm not here to make it about myself. I'm here to make it about Union City families. So if you can, please go to the GoFundMe page, do a search. You'll find that page that you see there provided, and please help out these families with whatever you can. Okay? Whether you donate via GoFundMe, or you can also donate at City Hall. You can go to 3715 Palisade Avenue to the third floor. And if you can donate clothes or canned goods or anything you can, consider helping these families being displaced during this very difficult time. Okay? That's what helping the community is about. And it's a shame I have to teach Leonard a lesson like I have before, where all he's about is the grift, about making it about himself. A guy who assaulted a police officer last year because he thinks he's entitled to walk in wherever he wants, make a scene, elevate his voice. Like, Leonard, when do you, again, and I get it, you're an old man, maybe, the mental acuities aren't what they used to be at the age of 79 that you are at. I get all that stuff. But in what version of reality do you think assaulting a police officer is a good thing? Leonard, you're going to jail later this year. And I'm going to enjoy being in that courtroom when you're sentenced. Because the video evidence is there, folks. It's not me making it up. It's not me concocting some story. Folks, the video evidence is there. You decide to be an agitator, going into an office that you know you're not welcome at, making a scene, and then you assault a police officer when you're asked to leave. Who thinks Leonard, when he decides to go like that because he's being pulled away, who thinks it's a good idea to do that to a police officer? Now, I don't know who bailed him out. I mean, I would have let him rot in jail as long as possible. I'm sure the guys that had to carry jail probably would have loved to have a little fun with Leonard. But regardless, I think you should be ashamed of yourself. Going after honorable educational employees. Instead of advocating for families displaced by a fire, no, you have to make it about yourself. You have to write this long diatribe online when just simply posting the GoFundMe link is all you need to do. But again, that's too much work for Leonard. He would rather grandstand. He'd rather bloviate. He would rather make it about himself than make it about a cause. Folks, that's the shitty human being that we've come to learn is Leonard Filipowski. Never mind, he's a trash human. But the level of stupidity that this retard engages in on just on a daily basis is embarrassing. You would think by now he would learn his lesson. Problem is he never will. Speaking of retards and Mickey Mouse journalists, let's talk about David Cruz. Another grifter who for years loved to shit on podcasting and independent media. And now, since he can't hold on a job, what else is new with Uncle Dave? He thinks he can, I don't know, jump into the arena and get some traffic and views. David, you're not doing shit. I've seen your traffic. It sucks. Very much like your brand of journalism has sucked for decades. But what's interesting is this hill that Uncle Dave wants to die on lately is about somehow, hey, we have to preserve public media, right? Check out this bullshit interaction on his latest edition of, I guess, the Timu bootleg version of Reporters Roundtable that he used to host when he took over from Michael Aaron. Folks, that's a real journalist. But check out this bullshit exchange on the latest episode on this bullshit podcast.
There were segments on funding of public media in New Jersey, which is something that now we're starting to talk a little bit more about. They asked rhetorically, should government be in the business of funding public media?
No.
I'll ask each of you, do you think the government should be funding public media in New Jersey? And how much? 5 million, 10 million, 15 million? You can say more or you can say less. We'll start with you, Taylor. What kind of support, if any, do you think?
I mean, leave it to Uncle Dave to have Taylor, this nose ring militia girl, social justice warrior, come on the show and pontificate her normal bullshit. Folks, check out her socials and her articles. I mean, it's there's nothing more infuriating or nauseating than a social justice clown, masquerading as a journalist. That's what Taylor's doing, plain and simple. But let's hear the bullshit during this segment here.
There should be for public media in New Jersey.
Is it a conflict of interest if I answer this question?
We should say that. We should all say, at least you and I should say that we're not totally disinterested. We did put in some time. We are what you might call public media survivors. But
yeah, public media survivors. I mean, folks, if anyone has seen the wars of public media, folks, and this is what makes David Cruz such an insufferable bastard. Because for years, people like David Cruz and Tom Moran and Ron Zettlinger and others did everything in their power to destroy the public trust in media. Because for years, if not decades, what we saw were these clowns and many others continue with their dishonest reporting and their blatant left-wing bias. So much so that what have we seen in the last decade? We saw the Star Ledger go out of print. Why? Because it's not sustainable and it's not trustworthy. You know who led the cause on that one? Tom Moran, who now at the age of 97 years old is still trying to stay relevant. Tom, what's left of your life at this point at 97, you should be down in Florida fishing or doing something instead of writing bullshit articles. We've all come to learn that your bullshit articles are the reason the Star Ledger, one of the reasons the Star Ledger went under. For over 120 years, the Jersey Journal was, at some point, a respected institution. But you know who helped kill it? Clowns like Ron Zettlinger and his blatant left-wing reporting. And what's Uncle Ronnie doing right now? I think he's like 92, 93 years old. Sure, I get it, Ron. In the last stages of your life, what's left of it, go down to Florida. Go fishing like Tommy. Be productive. Hopefully you are. But what's egregious about Uncle Dave is Uncle Dave's been in the business far too long. Uncle Dave is the dinosaur that we've come to just be tired of, who can't hold on a job because he's an asshole. Folks, Uncle Dave, David Cruz, is a dinosaur in this business. And guess who's the media? Okay? I've been showing it for a while. But somehow a guy, just like the others, who were complicit in the public here in New Jersey, losing faith and losing trust in media, you can blame David Cruz. And now somehow he wants to die on this hill that, oh, we have to preserve public media. Oh, we have to do this. You haven't done shit to help public media. You've done everything possible for the public to lose trust in media. Okay? When I think of David Cruz, who's going to trust this motherfucker? Nobody. He's not trustworthy. And here he is. And Taylor said it perfectly. Yeah, there is a conflict of interest. Oh, Uncle Dave? Oh, he wants money for doing nothing? What a typical person of Uncle Dave to do that. Okay? Look at this interest. Look at this grift by Uncle Dave. Yeah, I'm sorry. My tax dollars shouldn't fund it. We saw it funded for many, many years. And what did it give us? It gave us shitty content. David Cruz, Tom Moran, Ron Zellinger, you name it. They helped destroy public media. And now Uncle Dave quiere comer mierda and wants to sell us, that he wants to try to save it and rescue it? Who the fuck are you kidding, David? Get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, no one believes you. No one believes this grift by Uncle Dave. But let's continue with the bullshit.
Okay.
Yes, emphasis on that. I don't know. It's a tough question. I do think that they should maintain it, and it's in their best interest. But I think that the whole media industry in general, not just public media, is wondering, like, how will we continue being funded doing the work that we do? Like, how do we bring in revenue? Is it new subscribers, advertising? Is it, just philanthropic donations? I think it's going to need, I think state could be like a piece of it, but we're going to need way more than state funding to maintain public media and media in general.
So how much should the state contribute? 5, 10, or 15?
Man, I don't know. Should I put a number to this? I'll just go in the middle and say 10.
Nobody is watching, so.
You know what? That's true. Nobody is watching this bullshit show. That's true. That's probably the first true statement that Uncle Dave has made in God knows how long. Okay? Folks, Uncle Dave is about as useless as his New York Mets. Okay? Every time I see the Mets lose a game, I think of Uncle Dave, and I'm like, you know what? That warms my fucking heart to see his trash team being what they are, trash. Cheered on by trash fans like David Cruz. But let's continue with this nonsense here today.
Sure, 10. Let's go with 10.
10. Sean, you seem like a guy perfectly transforming his talents for the future of what public media could look like, because it's not going to be the nightly news. I mean, you can't sustain it like that. It's a different model, different ways of communicating now, no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get out ahead of it and just get on the social media and panhandle for my living now.
Amen,
yeah,
brother.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about panhandling. I mean, first of all, Uncle Dave looks like he lives under a bridge. That's a lot of space he'd take up anyway. But yeah, that's a good characterization. They're panhandling.
I think, yeah, I do think, I think public media is such a crucial part of the media ecosystem. I know that, like, I have, as a media consumer, I've always relied on public media. I've spent my entire career working in commercial media.
Sure, Sean, that's right. But the problem is that you're on a show with a guy who was maybe not completely responsible, but partly responsible for the destruction of the faith in public media, because for decades, folks, David Cruz was blatantly dishonest. Okay, if he wasn't sucking up the Democrats or far-left progressives, sooner or later, folks, the bill comes due. And you saw that with Uncle Dave, who now is trying to make it as an independent journalist. What the fuck are you kidding? You're not fooling anybody, David.
But I have deep reverence for the work of, like, public radio and public television journalists. I do think it's a little bit fussy. I do think that they should throw $10 million at them and give me 6 figures so that I could, as a consultant, so that I can teach you how to sound like a guy that knows how to change a tire. David, you sound like a normal human being.
Well, Sean, that's not true. David's pretty useless. I mean, David's one of the more useless human beings I've ever seen. And that's saying something, because the collage that I provide is perhaps the biggest collection of useless human beings in New Jersey. That's saying something, because David's right at the top of the list.
NJPBS is good, but public media in general a little pickies out. And so I think that does have downstream effects on reputation and funding like that. I think that the government is in the business of funding everything. The government is in the business of subsidizing cruise missiles. The government is in the business of subsidizing charter schools. The government is in the business of subsidizing all sorts of commercial enterprise.
Yeah, subsidizing illegals, Sean, among other left-wing policies that are turning New Jersey into an absolute shithole. I mean, please be intellectually honest about this.
Prizes.
Netflix.
The government is in the business of creating propaganda on TikTok and Twitter and Facebook now. So the idea that I think that we're far past the time where we can be really precious about our funding sources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like half our colleagues are cutting commercials now. That's something that would be like, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I think that the better idea is to put safeguards in place so that the politicians in charge of cutting these checks can't put their hand in. And I think that there are mechanisms to do that. Unfortunately, you got to be once you put those mechanisms in place, I think you have to be vigilant about them because
we forced the number out of Taylor. 5, 10, or 15 from you.
15. Give him 20. Media literacy all over classes all over New Jersey. Throw money at it. We throw money at way worse stuff.
Nice, it's true. Dustin.
Yeah, not that you ever call it out, David. I do on this show. You don't.
5, 10, or 15 million.
No, I'm going with 20.
20.
Yeah, let's go up to 25.
Yeah,
but I agree with both. I think that we definitely
you
have
think
to have
the
safeguards.
public, you think the public is as gung-ho for public media as we all seem to be?
No, we're not. We don't want our tax laws subsidizing this bullshit. Listen, I like Dustin Rasiopi, the editor of Political New Jersey. Does he employ some shitty human beings like Matt Friedman? Absolutely. Do I want Matt Friedman getting taxpayer dollars to fund his bullshit newsletter, the New Jersey Playbook? No, I don't think so. I think many New Jerseyans will agree with me.
No, unless you see somebody with those bumper stickers that like they're a public radio nerd or somebody's got a WNYC tote bag at Whole Foods.
In my experience, the public is scandalized whenever they find out how anything makes money.
Yeah. The argument for government subsidizing in some way the public media landscape is because there isn't as much public interest. They're fulfilling something. They're making people eat their vegetables. Most people want candy and cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
So,
well, trust me, if anyone wants candy and cheeseburgers, it's David Cruz. I mean, look at him. But folks, you get the picture here. And I don't think I have to sort of beat a dead horse, but it is rich to see Uncle Dave being as pervasive, as insistent as he is about, we have to rescue public media. We have to try to preserve public media. No, David, you're the last person that should ever be an advocate. The message is fine. The messenger sucks because you suck and you've been sucking for years. Never mind sucking down hot dogs and hamburgers on a regular basis, but your brand of journalism has sucked for years. You're the last person that should ever talk about quality media. And for you to die on this hill now, it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, but folks, it's David Cruz. So this level of bullshit, when I think about David Cruz dying on a hill about media and preserving media, you know what, folks? There's no better way to describe David Cruz than
No. Show. Loser. Clown. Loser. Show. Say it with me, Michael. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. It's a clown.
I mean, folks, it is a clown show. The audacity of this guy to think that he has any integrity on the conversation is absolute. Folks, it's priceless. Folks, don't take this conversation seriously. You want your tax dollars paying public media? Sure, let's have some safeguards. Let's start with the first safeguard. Let's not hire shitty people like David Cruz. Let's keep him as far away from the media echo chamber as possible. Because you know what? If you want better media, hire better people. Hopefully we learned our lesson, and nobody ever hires David Cruz. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, before we call it a night here, special comment time. And I want to thank everybody who turned out last Friday night to the world famous Son Cubano located along the waterfront in Western New Jersey, for the 2026 edition of Memories Matter to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. We raised over $3,000 to help Alzheimer's New Jersey. And folks, and by the way, Alzheimer's New Jersey, and why I'm so proud to volunteer for them, is the first line of support for over 600,000 residents here in New Jersey and for their families that are dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia-related illnesses. Alzheimer's New Jersey, I've seen with my own eyes. It starts at the top with their president and CEO, Kenneth Zanes, and the great staff and the executive board at Alzheimer's New Jersey. I saw it at their gala last Thursday night at the Grove in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. And by the way, thank you again for the invitation. But I've seen firsthand the great work that they do with helping families. And that's why I'm so proud to volunteer for Alzheimer's New Jersey. And last Friday night, and we're still getting donations online, folks, so that number is going to grow. Trust me, I'll keep you posted on it. But again, over $3,000 last week. And I want to thank the great team I worked with last week. Vladimir Carrero, Emily Yorka, Ileana Sandoval, Carmen Paneke, and of course, yours truly. Folks, it's always a good-looking team with a good-looking crowd for a great cause. And that's what we did last week at Son Cubano for Alzheimer's. For more information, please visit them at alznj.org. Your donations are safe and secure online. Again, if you want to donate to the event itself, just Google Memories Matter 2026 with Alzheimer's New Jersey. And once again, folks, all proceeds from last week benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey and the great work that they do helping families that are dealing with dementia-related illnesses and Alzheimer's. And again, folks, let's keep working hard and let's keep helping Alzheimer's New Jersey. And together, we'll defeat Alzheimer's once and for all. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank tonight's guest, Green Party candidate in the 12th Congressional District, Andres Jinete, here tonight. I really appreciate his conversation and a great conversation at that, folks. Once again, you can share the replay. We really appreciate your support for Fearless Independent Media, always here with Real Talk. Again, folks, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and X, subscribe to us on YouTube. Folks, I can't say enough how the traffic continues to grow. Traffic is strong already in April. We're halfway through. Folks, we're going to be cracking some good numbers, as always, as if you're surprised. As if you're surprised, folks. And again, the reason I'm wearing this today here, the greatness of the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, the original Tribal Chief, the Tribal Chief, the only Tribal Chief. Folks, greatness knows greatness. And that's what we bring you on this show every week. Okay? It's not a gimmick. It's not a moniker. Folks, it's what we wake up being on this show. We just wake up with greatness. We wake up being great. Other journalists, Mickey Mouse journalists, they don't know. They don't know what it's like. But here on this show, folks, again, we appreciate you tuning in here. And of course, on Spotify or SoundCloud, download us and take us with you anywhere at any time. And folks, again, always leading the way here, front and center for Jersey First TV. Folks, you know it. Check out Real Talk every Monday night. Check your local listings for start times here on the Jersey First Television Network. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. The definition of greatness. It's Fernando Uribe every Monday night. Get used to it if you're not used to it already. Please party responsibly, folks. And I'll see you next week here, next Monday night, the latest edition of Real Talk on Jersey First TV. Folks, thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.